Hello, so today I'm going to be going over the content area lesson plan presentation. So first, let's talk about the learning standards and objectives. The two standards that I have, one is a government one. Governments have authority to make and enforce laws. The other one is a reading one. Determine the meaning of general academic and domain-specific words and phrases in a text relevant to grade 3 topic or subject area. So my objectives are going to align with the government standard and then also the reading standard. So number one, I can identify phrases that are confusing in the government passage. This is going to go along with the strategy that I use later on that I will talk about. Number two, I can sketch the phrases that are confusing to me to better understand what is being said in the passage. And number three, I can determine at least two meanings of phrases in the government passage by rereading and sketching. And this is going to relate back to the reading standard. The reason that I chose to do the government one is because my students have always struggled with some of the terms that are used in government and the phrases. So they can memorize sometimes some of the terms, but when it comes to a phrase being put together, it kind of gets a little confusing. So that is why I have the government strand in there. Depending on your class, of course, the age, you might want to do a science. You can also do a literacy, but remember the book I'm using is nonfiction, so it would have to be nonfiction to apply to the strategy that I'm going to use of sketch and stretch. So let's move on to that. So, teaching strategy and classroom content. The classroom content for this lesson is social studies and reading, as I went over already. I will be using the strategy of sketch and stretch. So I put a couple quotes on here that I thought were really interesting. So in the mid 1980s, Jerry Hurst and colleagues began looking at a body of research called transmediation. Transmediation is the changing of one medium to another. Harvest's work looked at transforming text into art, which then brings about the sketch to stretch. He thought that readers could stretch their understanding of a written text if after they read it, they would draw either a literal or metaphorical representation of the text. And I personally love this idea. I love when children can read something, they get this visual without the pictures, and they then themselves are almost motivated to draw a picture from what they just heard or what they just seen, or even just given the opportunity to do so. So now the strategy of sketch and stretch is used as a during read strategy to help students solve their confusion.